Hi everybody, welcome to this product briefing. Excited to get a perspective from Lee. Those in the community will definitely know Lee, but for everybody who maybe doesn't, Lee, can you give us a perspective of your role at Microsoft? And you've been at Neat quite a while now as well.
That's right. Yeah. Hey, Tom. Thanks for having me on. So my name's Lee Edgerton. I was at Microsoft last year, and I was doing a lot of alliance work with the hardware partners. And October last year, I jumped across to Neat as their alliance lead for the APAC region.
Awesome. And I always come to you to get a perspective on what's going on in APAC, because it's such a vast part of the market, but I feel like we don't get quite the same level of understanding, but certainly I don't. I'm in the UK, so I get a good handle on Europe. Everybody's talking about the US and the Americas market. But I thought maybe you could give us a perspective on what's going on in Asia Pac and particularly what's going on with Neat over there.
The thing is, if it's one of those things with APAC, right? If you say that you know what's going on in APAC, you kind of don't know what's going on in APAC.
Yeah.
It's such a broad market, right? I mean, if I talk from an Australia, New Zealand perspective, so ANZ and in particular Australia has always been at the forefront of adoption. They've been the early adopters for technology.
Yeah.
And I remember back in my Microsoft days, they were the first to adopt all the cloud services from Microsoft. It was always like that.
They were really early to do a big number in Teams Room as well. And I remember back in the Voice days when I was on Voice, often Australia was the office that went first. And it was either they were super progressive or globally they were the ones that were willing to take the first risk. So yeah, you're right. I've always seen that them being a little bit ahead of the curve.
Yeah, 100%. And it's no different with Teams Rooms and with meeting technology in general as well. We're not only just seeing them adopting it, but Australia, New Zealand is like at the point of refresh of the last adoption round, you know? Whereas if I look elsewhere in the region, you're seeing in some cases the early adoption of meeting room technology or digital transformation in some markets where maybe they've had phone or voice in a meeting room, but nothing else. And they're looking at their first foray into video and to those more sort of engaging experiences in a meeting room. But it's everything in between as well, right? So you look at Japan, for example, and always like viewed as the technologically advanced and the futuristic society. But in many cases, they've been relying on older technology to run their businesses on. So getting them onto the latest and greatest hardware is a big priority. And then India is a market where you sort of can't get your hands around it. It is so big and they're adopting and moving so fast. It's very hard to say that India is doing this or that. It's just it's sort of explosive growth is what we're seeing in India.
Yeah, the user numbers in India are crazy as well. Like it's just a whole different world. And with the Neat portfolio, like you've had a lot of announcements recently. I guess if we roll it back a bit, obviously there was the Pulse launch. There's App Hub. There's more recently new hardware and the dual sensors I just saw with Graham a few weeks ago. Which bits of that, from your perspective and your part of the world, like are those customer pull through? Are those new propositions for customers? How's that conversation going?
It's both. So we're seeing like some of our largest customers in APAC, they're asking us to be able to cover more and more different spaces inside their offices and workplaces. And those spaces are usually the very large and custom ones. And features like Dual Neat Center is perfect for that. Things like Neat Focus, perfect for that, right? Where you can now replace, in some cases, multiple PTZ cameras around a room and multiple built-in mics or speakers or whatever. And you can bring it down to a Neat Bar Pro and a couple of Neat Centers, right? So I think for that, it's great at sort of expansion or being able to cover new experiences for customers. But also, there's a lot of other announcements, particularly around like the video calling stuff and all of our BYOD announcements that we've had that sort of now all of a sudden extend Neat to covering even more spaces for more customers where they might not want to go the full native, but they definitely want the flexibility. And so announcements like we made Airtame and Margot are two big ones, but we made a whole range of announcements last month around new ways that we get. The way I sort of frame it is we all think of BYOD and native and there's not a lot in between, whereas I feel like there is a middle ground now where you're approaching a feel of a native experience, but you are retaining that flexibility of being able to join multiple different platform meetings. And we're seeing the announcement we've made really are helping in addressing that opportunity with customers.
Yeah, I think flexibility is a good word for it, because you've got the native Zoom option, native Teams option, BYOD, app hub mode, and recently you just announced the Google Meet one as well. So that's to come, isn't it? But that's another platform. So suddenly the neat capabilities expand again.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's what we're aiming at. How is it that we can offer the greatest flexibility for customers, but we still retain the core value of simplicity, right? Because if you look at what we do, everything comes back to the switch, right? From a hardware perspective, everything just plugs into the switch. From a management perspective, everything goes into Pulse, and it's a platform that's designed for humans to use, right? That sort of stuff. And so we're trying to do whatever we can to be able to give customers full flexibility, but really, really in a simple, neat way.
Yeah, it's an interesting tension, isn't it? Because there's such you can tell this neat design philosophy and simplicity to it, but actually you're adding features all the time. And there's a lot of work's gone into the audio as well. So lighting up the mics in the pads, and obviously with the dual centers, you're actually extending the cameras, obviously, but you're extending the mics as well. So suddenly you're able to cover better spaces for video and audio.
Yeah, 100%. And you wouldn't believe how hard it is to make something simple, right? We spend a lot of time and energy into adding functionality for customers in. I mean, you've got it right. Just being able to do 2 neat centers, a pad, you suddenly have multiple microphone pickup points throughout the room, as well as the front of room, and then being able to have the audio dynamically switch between each of those depending on the quality of the audio, the speaker in each seat at the meeting table, right? Being able to make sure this is all sort of automatic, almost invisible in the background, so that the remote attendees, because you've got to remember, it's all for the benefit of the remote attendees, all this extra technology to make sure that they are heard and they are seen and they are included in the meeting.
Awesome. And AI obviously is the big conversation everywhere, including in the room. How's that working in your markets in terms of adoption? And I've started to have conversations with customers now where they're like, we're on a Copilot journey, therefore we're accelerating our phone and rooms journey to get that data. Is that the same thing in Australia and New Zealand?
Yeah, I'd say Australia and New Zealand, definitely. And so for that market, you're looking at customers, you're exactly right. They're on that Copilot journey, or they're on that they're adopting AI within the business, and they want to make sure that the meeting rooms aren't sort of dark spots, that they're not what happened why is it that we're not hearing anything out of that meeting? Or, that as an employee, you go into a meeting, you're going to have to generate content out of that yourself. You can't just extract AI generated content out of that room. So things like, for example, Microsoft adding MTRA support for Copilot in the meeting room, meeting facilitator, things like that. That's huge, right? Because it bridges that gap in the meeting room to make sure that you can have AI coverage sort of before the meeting, after the meeting, but most importantly, during the meeting.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. You start to see now where I assume obviously on a Teams meeting on my desktop, I've got the transcript and I can actually fully engage. And I think we're hitting the tipping point on the rooms now, where in a year's time we'll be obviously facilitators around taking notes and doing this and doing that, and obviously I'll get a summary at the end. And I think that's going to really enable that ability for people to properly engage, and particularly as we're continue to be in different hybrid scenarios, making sure the room is fully transcribed and engaged in the conversation is just going to create better outcomes, I think.
Yeah, because you got to think about what happens in a year, 2 years, 3 years time as AI agents and AI becomes more of an active participant in companies, right? Where they are taking on the grunt work, and suddenly the most important thing that's left is that human to connection, right? So you have people that are in a meeting room and they are working stuff out, and maybe it's not a cast of thousands like we're used to these days. Maybe it is a few core people in that room, but being able to automatically capture the transcription and actions and notes out of that and then deliver it to the people that need it, that is going to become even more important as sort of AI adoption ramps up for customers.
Definitely. Well, Lee, thanks for catching us up. Really nice to hear from you, and glad everything's going well over there. And interesting to hear the latest from Neat as well. So we'll catch you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. Cheers.